Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to have you with us today. For those tuning in for the first time, I am Jamie Fries-Miller. I'm a health coach here at MassCell 360, and I'm happy to host two experts on today's topic. So one is one of MassCell 360's lead practitioners, Kimberley Quirk, and a regular guest on our show today, we will have Stephen Wright from Healthy Gut. So you guys are in for a treat as always. Real quick, just want to go over our show disclaimers. This presentation is for informational and educational purposes. This presentation is not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent illness. Be sure to discuss any health recommendations with your licensed healthcare provider. Oh yeah, I already see comments coming in. If everyone wants to drop in and let us know where they're tuning in from, we always love to see where you are, and you can do that if you're watching the replay or live. All right, quick affiliate reminder. So some of the links shared during this presentation or on our website or are affiliate links, which means MassCell 360 may take a very small commission if you purchase through us. We only recommend products that we love and use personally or use in the MassCell 360 practice or supplement store. All right, so I'm going to bring up Kimberley and Stephen to kind of go over what are we going to talk about today.
Well, I'm excited to be back, and I think we're kind of doing a general Q&A on. I mean, well, we've done some basic level histamine stuff over the last few months, but I think we're going another layer deeper. Would that be your take on it, Kimberly?
Yeah, kind of going over the basics and then seeing if we can get some questions answered, because I know we've had a lot of content lately and not had a lot of chance to dive into some of the questions. So I think that would be great to do that.
Yeah. So for those
you're thinking of your super hard questions, like, what do you want to know about, mast cell, leaky gut, or even the supplement industry in general? Happy to, dive into all that stuff later on.
Yeah, it sounds like Stephen wants a challenge today. I was going to say, if you didn't tune in last week, we went kind of deep dive on gut health and like the actual process of digestion, but we didn't have a ton of time for those questions. So we took a few that were brought in on we did a social post asking for some questions ahead of time. So we did pull a few of those for you guys. And then of course we'll do the live Q&A at the end if we have time. All right. So Kimberly, do you want to get us going on some gut basics, and you guys basically have a conversation about it and share.
Like we said, we went a lot deeper on this. If you want to look back at past, like last week's on digestion, but just gut basics. Your body is a system of systems. Everything is connected, which is huge, which does, conventional medicine doesn't always do that, right? Our mouth is disconnected from conventional medical, right? Dental, different from medical. But yeah, everything is connected, huge. 70% of your immune system is in your gut. I've actually seen that higher, and actually be interested in Stephen's take on that, because I've heard 80-90%. But basically, your mast cells are immune cells, right? So there's a lot of those in the gut, and those mast cells are found in nearly every tissue in your body, but they're very much in abundance in your gut. So that's why there's so many gut symptoms with mast cell activation. I'll let Stephen, you want to do this next one? This is your jam.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think many people are familiar with leaky gut, at least the old definition of leaky gut from like 10 to 15 years ago, which is, you can see there on your screen, there's literally only one layer of cells between the inside of your gut and the inside of your body. And so that one layer of cells is made up of all different types of cells, including mast cells and specialized immune cells and just regular gut cells, epithelial cells, or colonocytes in the large intestine. And the normal definition of leaky gut, or like the basic, 101 definition, is stuff that's supposed to stay inside the gut breaks through into the body in a unfiltered or unchecked or unbounced way. And when this happens, all those immune cells that Kimberly was referring to, I don't know if it's more than 70 or 80%. I've always heard those numbers. I haven't seen, now that we're finding all this cool science that's rewriting the different parts of the body. I don't know that we'll ever know, maybe for another 5-10 years, how many percentage of immune cells are in that layer behind your gut cells, but they're in and around the gut in the, like, by far and away anywhere else in the body. And so the reason why is because they want to protect you in case of something like leaky gut. And leaky gut's not just like bad things, like mold toxins or lipopolysaccharide toxins, which are parts of the walls of various types of bacteria and gram-negative bacteria, but it's also just like misbroken down proteins and misbroken down carbohydrates, especially those of us with gut issues, those of us with immune conditions, those of us with histamine conditions. There are strong correlations, really high likelihood that you have upstream issues of just breaking down your regular foods. And when those foods do not get down to the proper size, it's literally like a size thing. It's like almost like using like a filter or a cheesecloth or something inside of your kitchen. If it doesn't get to the right size, it's supposed to get caught in the cloth and not go in. But in something like leaky gut, that's where even normal things like a piece of beef or a piece of chicken can get in there before it's supposed to. And when that happens, there is localized inflammation. It's not like a 5-alarm fire yet, but it starts to build into one over time, because just like when you have inflammation due to a pimple on your face or a sprained ankle, the tissue around that pimple or that ankle, it gets upset. It gets mad because there's all kinds of cytokines and signaling molecules that are rushing in to take care of the issue. And so there are other layers than just the cells. And we'll talk about like the more advanced model of leaky gut that researchers have uncovered if we have time today. But basically, the mast cells and the gut cells, they're just not supposed to be as exposed to all these particles as what they are. And when they are, they break down, and then the immune system is supposed to come in and clean up the job. But if you had someone that was like paid to sit next to you and they're just poking you all day long, you would get agitated. I don't care how monk-like you are, you would get agitated at some point. And that's kind of like what's happening to the immune system in a broken down gut. At some point, the immune system is going to start reacting to being poked all the time. And then that's when you get the spillover effect into wherever your genetic or epigenetic weaknesses are.
Thank you. Thanks for that really great overview. So Kimberly, do you want to go into the basics of MCAS and how that relates to the leaky gut aspect?
So, the basics on mast cell, which we've talked about extensively in some of these Facebook Lives, but mast cell activation syndrome means your mast cells are overactive. We said that's part of your immune system. It's kind of like the poking he's talking about. Those are your frontline defenders, right, of your immune system. And mold is the number one root cause of mast cell in our clinic. I would say 99% of our clients have that at the root of it. Doesn't mean it's the only issue, right? There's usually a perfect storm of things going on, but usually there's some kind of mold exposure that happened at some point that led to some immune dysregulation. So mold can lead to leaky gut for many reasons, and mold toxicity can also put you at higher risk for oxalate intolerance and other food sensitivities. So keep that in mind. And then increased inflammation from root causes like mold, like leaky gut and other mast cell triggers. Active mast cells release more chemical messengers, more than just histamine. Sometimes we focus a lot on the histamine piece. There's a lot more that can be released selectively by the mast cells. And sometimes we see that in symptoms with people.
Yeah, we get that question a lot between like, what's the difference between histamine intolerance and mast cell activation syndrome? So for those who are on today's call and just learning about it, there's kind of the two pieces. So here's kind of some of the basics of the histamine issue that goes on as part of this.
Yeah.
And
we talked a little bit about that before. In clinic, I'll say sometimes somebody just has mast cell, and sometimes somebody just has a little bit of histamine intolerance, but usually we have both. And there's a lot of crossover there, right? It's maybe the histamine intolerance is a little bit the starting to poke, and the mast cell is like it's been poking for a while, right? Does that seem like a fair enough assessment to you, Stephen, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you really need to stop trying to look at the world as binary, like an AI or a computer, like one or zero, like on or off. Like I either have mast cell activation or I don't have it, or I have histamine intolerance or I don't have it. That's not the case. Everybody knows when it comes to even being sick with the flu or ASD, autism spectrum, it's a spectrum. Histamine intolerance is a spectrum. Mast cell activation is a spectrum. It's gray. There's zero white and black. It is all gray all the time. And sometimes you have all the pieces of the puzzle that, let's say your stress is lower. We're past the holidays, right? The stressful time of the year is past us. We're in this, hopefully looking forward to summertime. Let's say that so your stress is down, your exercise is up, your supplements are up, like everything's vibing in the right direction. And suddenly you don't express a lot of mast cell activation, but you still might suffer with histamine intolerance. But then if you're a woman, here comes your cycle. And like right before your cycle, suddenly the way your hormones are shifting, now things are going to activate where you might not have as much DAO. You might have more of an intolerance to histamine, and bam, now you've experienced these mast cell-like symptoms, or it could be a flare in histamine intolerance. They're so peanut buttered and jelly that I think it can be, it's just silly to me to try to be like, like this is my label, this is my name tag, but I don't have the other name tag because they're so intertwined.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes it's hard. It's like, what are we trying to get at, whether we label it or not? We're trying to get rid of the symptoms and get away from the labels, right?
Yeah. Look, we're trying to express less histamine to normal life conditions. And unfortunately, normal life now is Wi-Fi. It is blue light. It is chemicals. It is glyphosate. It is, mold's always been here. But like that is normal life now. And there are whole swaths of the population that do not react to those conditions. They have a histamine system, an immune system, a gut system that is capable of regulating to this new environment. And so we just have to figure out for each individual, like you said, what are the components of helping them regulate their histamine expression to this new world that we're living in. And, you have the histamine expression, then you have the breakdown, and you have the DAO pathway. And so it's really, I think, I'm always just thinking about it in an equation. Like, how can I express less histamine to regular stuff? And how can I either take more DAO supplements or not block myself from making it?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's nice to get to the point, and I've been on this journey as well. It's like I'm to the point where I just take DAO if I'm out to eat or something like that as sort of a precautionary, that kind of thing. So yeah, that makes sense. The other thing to think about is how the nervous system ties into it too, right? Right. It's body and mind, and they're connected, and they talk back and forth.
Yeah, that's why I led with stress there. Like now, if you're feeling better in like literally today than you were in November or December, like probably it's because of the nervous system. You weren't trying to run around and buy gifts for everyone. You weren't trying to prep your house for parties or trying to decide if you should do this family thing or this family thing, or, say no to certain social settings. Would you react to the food that they were served? Like that whole time warp of 6 weeks is extraordinarily hard on our nervous system. And if your parasympathetic nervous system is turned down or turned off, you should just expect histamine issues. Like if you enter into a time period where your child gets sick, you're struggling with your boss, any sort of a stressful thing, you should just automatically assume your histamine issues are going to flare, and you should act accordingly, whether that's take more DAO, whether that's take a different mast cell stabilizer in a higher amount, call the MC360 clinic and say help, like whatever it is, you should assume. And then when that comes off, when that stressful period comes off, you should also assume to ramp down. And, just know that phase of your life, that season of your life is down. And so that's where doing, I'm a huge proponent of vagal stimulation these days and some neurofeedback devices. I've been playing a lot with devices over the last year for my nervous system because I've tried a lot of other methods that haven't stuck as well for me. I don't do as well as some of the tapping methods or the rewiring methods. I kind of do much better if I have this daily device that I just like, shock myself or, meditate. For some reason that just does better for me. And as soon as I skip like 3 days, cause I'm traveling or cause we just hosted some family and I got all out of my rhythm. And by the end of the week, I was sneezing at things. I was like, why did I just sneeze? And I had stopped doing my practices.
Yeah.
I always say that the best nervous system supports are the ones you're actually going to do. And so like we have our suggestions at Mast Cell 360, but then we'll have a client come in and be like, I didn't resonate with that. And it's like, okay, well, what can we find for you to resonate with? Because some people do like tapping, some people like breath work, some people like primal trust, some people like Gupta, right? And so like, it's a matter of just finding what resonates with you and like, to your point, sticking to it, because you totally notice like the difference in your symptoms when you let go of that practice. All right. So I think we're going to jump into our first question that came in through social media. It may be a great one for Kimberly to start us off. Where do I start healing and how?
So that's a big question, right? Depends on who you are and where you're at, right? Have you started, with Mast Cell, it's kind of, have you looked at both the mold side as well as the nervous system side and sort of calming that down? What are your biggest symptoms? How can you kind of calm those down? But stabilization is usually where we start with the MC360 method. And it's looking at what are the triggers? How can we calm things down? Because just moving over to a detox component would just make you flare more. So definitely starting with stabilization, which is both, looking at all those things, but big picture, looking at the mold piece, looking at the nervous system piece, and getting that immune system to calm down so that you're not triggering it further.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of the MC360 method, this is kind of the order of operations that we work in with our clients at Mast Cell 360, and starting with that nervous system component as a way to stabilize, but also making sure that we're reducing those mast cell triggers, whether it's through something like DAO or supporting digestion, so that we make sure that we're having a daily bowel movement, because you can't detox if you're not having that daily bowel movement. So Stephen's products are really great for supporting that gut stabilization piece. Not for everyone, but for some people. Definitely their products are amazing, and we do use them in clinic with a lot, if not almost majority of our clients. So thank you, Kimberly. Let's see. Stephen, I'm going to hand this over to you. So what is that toolbox for gut support?
Yeah. So, I think if you're either just starting out and you're trying to get a handle on this, or you've actually been in the chronic condition world, the non-Western medicine world, for even a veteran, like you've been here a long time, maybe as long as I have or Kimberly has. No offense, Jamie, I don't know how long you've been in the game, but maybe you've been here longer than us. But there's a few things that I think people tend to get wrong. Either they go all in and do too many things that they're not educated enough on because they're listening to too many shows at the same time, too many books, too many experts, or they dip their toe in the water too slowly and then they never actually get any traction. And so I think it's not perfect, but you do have to think of this. You could think of it almost like emergency medicine. Like if you come upon a car crash and you're not trained in emergency medicine, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you, but I have done some training in that. And like, there's a series of steps you go through to keep someone alive. You got to, check the airway, or first you got to check, for any giant loss of blood. You also have to check the airway. You got to assess the situation, all these different things. And I think in histamine and in mast cells and in the gut, there are a series of checklists that, whether you're a veteran and you haven't done this in a long time, or whether you're new and you're just getting started, it would make really logical sense for you to try the toolbox again, to try the steps again, because they are so fundamental to just how the body works. You can eat all the food you want to eat, low histamine, paleo, organic. You could, bless it every single day, put all the good vibes in it. But if you don't have the stomach acid, or you don't have the enzymes to break it down, it's not like none of that matters, but kind of some of that really doesn't even matter. You'll never tolerate it. You just won't. And people don't like hearing that because everyone's so food is medicine. Well, no, it's not. Food is part of the equation to great health and recovering your health. But digestion of any type of food, whether it's processed or organic, absolutely matters to whether that food is harming you or helping you. And so the first step is obviously remove any massive red flags, which is where they've talked about like clean water, clean air, clean diet, but 80-20 that. Like, I'm not saying like you need to go out and spend all of your time learning about environmental conditions in your home and everything about like optimizing water to the nth degree, because the return on investment of time and money will not be there in the beginning. You just want to get 80-20 done on diet. Like, like if you're having histamine issues, stop eating your leftovers. Like maybe look at the list of high histamine foods and at least stop the top ones. Maybe don't eat eggplant or eggplant, tomato, fish. Like that's probably going to, and have a little wine. That'll definitely, trigger a lot of folks. So to learn those few things. And then I would say start to attack your gut in a way that makes logical sense where every organ is supported. And so the protocol you see in front of you essentially is supporting all your organs to do their jobs the best they can. DAO or HistoHarmony, our enteric coated DAO, has been a game changer for a lot of folks who tried DAOs in the past and they didn't see results. And I believe it's due to the enteric coating. Like that stuff matters on how you get the product there. And if you can't tolerate DAO, some people are saying they can't tolerate it. That's probably a nervous system thing. I don't see nervous system on this list, but nervous systems talked about all over Mast Cell 360. And I try to talk about it as much as I can as well. Start with your nervous system so that you can tolerate something like HistoHarmony. Because correct me if I'm wrong, what is, like, Kimberly, if you have someone who's reacting to like HistoHarmony, like, is there any other basic product that's even more basic than that you'd put them on?
Oh, basic than DAO?
Yeah.
Yeah, baking soda.
Okay. Great.
Or minerals, amino acids. Sometimes basic because they don't have those basic things because they haven't for a while been absorbing their food, right, and breaking it down well. Yeah.
So nervous system, baking soda, amino acids, electrolytes. If you can't tolerate DAO, essentially, if you can't tolerate something like DAO, that's suggesting your system is so hypervigilant. It is so. I don't care whether you think you are. Your body's telling you what it's experiencing. And it doesn't matter how you rationalize it. People, and I did this to myself for years. I would be like, I'm not stressed. And I'd meet with practitioners. They'd be like, have you heard of Byron Katie? Have you heard of meditation? I'm like, I don't need that. I'm busy. I'm building my life, doing things, helping people. And then it wasn't until 5-6 years later when I just beat my head on the wall over and over and over again to realize just how important doing the nervous system work, because it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what my body thinks. It matters the clues and the communication that my body's giving me. It doesn't matter what I think. And so if you use that, you can kind of be like, okay, well, if DAO is a no-go, if electrolytes are hard, like maybe definitely looking for these triggers and looking for all the mast cell stuff on the nervous system. So if you don't know, did you want to say something there, Jamie?
No, I was just going to say that kind of falls into that like order of operations for us. So like we kind of categorize people in hypersensitive, sensitive, and robust. And so when someone doesn't tolerate any supplements at all, they're hypersensitive, and they really need to work on that mast cell stabilization piece, which obviously involves the nervous system part. And I also like to remind people that like there were symptoms. If they're real physical, like they're not digesting their food, right? That is a physical stressor on the body. So often we think of like stress as being the mental piece, but like we're not really in touch and embodied enough to understand the physical stress that our bodies are undergoing. And so by doing the nervous system piece, we're actually targeting some of that ability to calm that inflammation with just like being really intentional with our care. And so I did want to mention that last week we opened up our 2 tiers of clients. And so our foundational tier is really focused on like people who are stuck in their healing or brand new to this and just need like 3 action steps of like what to really focus on. So if anyone feels like stuck or not sure where to go, that would be a great strategy to do a strategy session with one of our health coaches to understand like where are you in the order of operations. And I also want to mention that if you have specific questions on these products, like the HistaHarmony, the Holozyme, the HCL Guard, and Tributyrin X, Steven's team at healthygut.com, you can message with them, and their health coaches are really great on answering like product specific questions for your specific case. So I wanted to let our audience know that that's a resource for them.
I think that was great to say about the physical stress, because sometimes we don't think of that. We think stress, we always think emotional stress. I think physical stress is big. And sometimes it can be something as we're not even aware of. It might be like not sleeping as well, and the sleep apnea piece and the oxygenation piece, but your body is under physical stress because something going on. So yeah, we're kind of looking at that at the beginning to make sure we can kind of get people in a place where they can heal.
Yeah. And I would say, I don't know what you guys see, but at Healthy Gut, I think 97 to 98% of people tolerate HistaHarmony. So again, that's just pointing out to the fact that there are super, super sensitive folks out there who cannot tolerate. And if you're in that camp, I'm sorry, but it's great to know you're not alone. You're not like a weirdo. You probably do want to meet with the MC360 team because they're really adept at dealing with extraordinarily sensitive people. And then for the rest of us who are just sensitive, you should be able to tolerate it for the most part, and increasing that immediately, including 2, 4, 6 pills a day, 8 pills a day, whatever you need to do can be a lifeline. Like literally you're treading water in a lake or in the ocean, struggling every single day with brain fog or other histamine related issues. And if you get the right amount of HistaHarmony in there, you can at least, hold on to something for flotation and stop working so hard just to get throughout the day. And then that starts to open up more and more possibilities around, checking for low stomach acid with HCL Guard, which includes some mast cell stabilizers. It opens up possibilities with Tributyrin X. Butyrate is a mast cell stabilizer, but it also is the top compound for restoring leaky gut, because leaky gut's not just the gut, it's the mucus layers, it's the microbiome, it's the oxygen layers. And Tributyrin and Tributyrin X is the best thing I've ever seen for starting that pathway. Someone asked earlier about pre and probiotics. Pre and probiotics are like not even in the conversation yet. Like they don't happen for like probably a few months. And people are, I love that the awareness about the probiotic revolution is finally mainstream. And for those of us who've been in it, like I've been in this game for 15 years now, I remember when I was trying to like be so excited about every single strain and every single new product and trying every single one. And I'm not saying probiotics are worthless. I take probiotics, I take prebiotics, but when it comes to putting a body back together, when it comes to getting a person in relation to their environment and to not being so hypervigilant to allergens on trees or mold even, or foods that are normal, like strawberries and spinach, which are normal foods. Pre and probiotics are like near the end of the journey. And then they're part of the maintenance phase, so you don't go backwards again. Then we have digestive enzymes, holozymes. Again, people think that it's all about the food choices, but it's also about the body's capacity to deal with whatever food. You were just talking about the physical stressors. Like if you're not sleeping well, that is a physical stressor. If you're exercising too much, that's a physical stressor. But if you're also not capable of digesting normal foods, that's a physical stressor. And so one of the things about taking something like stomach acid support with HCL Guard or digestive enzymes with holozymes is we're removing a physical stressor and we're changing the actual 3D molecules from the food. And when you change the molecules, the immune system at least has to not just immediately hypervigilantly react to something. It has to maybe think for a second. And every single thinking for a second between stimulus and response, that's where we're trying to build that cushion, whether it's emotional triggers or mast cell triggers. anything we can do to build that space between stimulus and response, even to spinach and strawberries, it's gonna like aggregate day after day. It's gonna build into something better. And so that's where doing holozymes, doing HCl guard, they may seem boring, but they actually do matter, especially when you're trying to rebuild a body. And so that's where the stack kind of all comes together. If something in this stack upsets you, like somebody's on YouTube saying that Tributylnex caused me to horribly constipate, that is a great sign that you're probably extraordinarily deficient in that thing, or you have some nervous system stuff related to it. So we actually see that with Tributylnex. That's why the instructions that are in the emails and everything is like 1 pill every 3 days as you build up, if you're on the more constipated side, like if that's the way your body tends to go. My theory, we don't have the data yet. We have plenty of data that butyrate and tributyrins and sodium butyrates work for constipation. We don't have data on what is the differential of butyrate in a diarrhea dominant versus a constipation dominant human yet. But if I had to wager a lot of money, I would, that the constipated folks have even less butyrate than the diarrhea folks. And so when you introduce a stimulus that's supposed to be there that hasn't been there, you actually upset the system more in a constipated person than you do in a diarrhea person, because they have a little bit more already. It's more used to it. In the constipated version of the gut, I think the gut is reoriented so much towards glucose pathways and less oxygen, oxphorylation pathways, that introducing even a little bit of tributyrin can be like a really big change. And so that's for those folks, they can really get constipated. And so you got to up your magnesium, you got to up your vitamin C, your stool softener, whatever you might be doing. The cool thing that we see, and the reason why I would wager on this thesis, is that many people around weeks 10 to 14 of consistently taking Tributylnex and increasing the dosage, hopefully to 2 or 3 per day by the end of that time, they start writing in with like these spontaneous bowel movement stories. They're like, I'm done. I'm off vitamin C. I'm off Docalax. I'm having a poop. And for some people that you're like, dude, why are you even talking about this? But for the people who know, they know that that's a pretty awesome day. It's a great day. So that's, when you have that counter, what's it called? When you have that let's say you take magnesium and you get anxious, like you actually have the counter reaction to the product. That's actually an amazing clue about your body. I know it sucks. Believe me, I've been there on some things. I know it sucks, but it's an extraordinarily signal that you can use to kind of decode what's going on in your body.
Yeah. We have a few more slides on like specific products, which you covered a lot right there. So I'm going to go on to our next question from the social post. Oh, nope. Just kidding. For those who actually just wanted to give you guys a little brain break real quick, because that was a lot of information. So if you maybe have tried some of those products before and they haven't worked for you, we do have a blog post. If you go to mastcell360.com/gut, that does have a few of those alternatives. I did want to mention one of the things that we see, which is very rare, but because DAO is made from pork, if someone has a pork allergy or alpha-gal, that may be one of the reasons why someone would be hypersensitive to that. And then I think the other thing is like, there's just no one size fits all, because one product may work for someone and get a lot of progress, but then they're not able to onboard some of the other ones right away, because just we're such highly individual beings. And that's why working with someone who's knowledgeable can kind of help you trial and error, because a lot of times someone may try a supplement that they've, heard on a podcast or read about online, and it may not be right for them at that moment. Doesn't mean it's not right for them when they are able to tolerate it. So I just wanted to remind people, like, really do work with someone who is knowledgeable on this, and you can kind of take your education to them and run it by them. So we do have a few other options on that blog, but we are, really supportive of Stephen's products. All right, community question number 2. I'd love to gain a clear understanding of how to use the recommended gut supplements in conjunction with Pepcid or famotidine, specifically spacing and timing. So Stephen or Kimberly, do you guys have any recommendations on this?
So famotidine or Pepcid, is something that we're using as an H2 blocker for the histamine receptors. So you don't want that you want it close enough to your meal that it's working, but you don't want it so close that you can't break down your protein. So we usually say to space it out about a half hour before, so the gut is more calm coming into it. So how to use that with the other supplements? The other supplements I would be taking with the meal, like the Holozyme with the meal, the HCL Guard, and Stephen, I'll let you jump in there since they're your products too.
Yeah, I mean, some people get really confused about stopping stomach acid or lowering it and then increasing it. And again, either work with a practitioner, like be an adult, like literally be an adult, evaluate your own self, your own knowledge level, your own risk levels. Because I don't know anything about your family history. I don't know about your tests. I don't know anything, right? But you can either work with a provider who understands how to use these products, or you can get knowledgeable enough yourself and you can maybe start to come to some conclusions. One of the things is, do not take HCL Guard if you have active ulcers, any stomach support. So anything that contains betaine HCL, don't take it if you have active ulcers. They say, and I have to say, not to take it if you're on long-term steroid use. The reason why is not because they interact. It's because long-term steroid use thins out your mucosal membranes and causes ulcers, which then again would be the one thing that you definitely do not want to take with any sort of betaine HCL product. There's no technical interactions, and in fact, in human studies, typically what they do to cause low stomach acid is they give blockers to block people's stomach acid, and then they supplement with betaine HCL to restore the acid to prove that betaine HCL works. So there's nothing necessarily wrong about using Pepcid, 30, 45 minutes before your meal, and then using HCL Guard during your meal to restore that acid. There's nothing technically wrong with that, as long as you're not having some sort of reactions, you're feeling fine, you understand your risk levels, you understand what you're doing, right? It's like if you didn't know how to lift weights and you just went down to the gym and you just started throwing dumbbells up in the air. Like you don't know what you're doing. So maybe stop doing that. But if you understand how to move those, you've done some research, you can understand how to move stomach acid levels around and kind of play with things. And the Pepcid's not going to really interact with Holozymes or Tributylin X or HistoHarmony. HistoHarmony and Tributylin X are completely protected from whatever stomach manipulations you do due to their enteric coatings. That's why we formulated them. That's why we're so proud of them. That's what makes us different from all the other gut brands. So in general, you don't have to worry about those products. And Holozymes, you can also take on an empty stomach for other usages. And my only point in saying this is that they work whenever you take them, but they work on whenever you take them. So if you're taking them with food for food reasons, great. The Pepcid's not gonna, they're pH agnostic. That's how they're formulated. They're formulated to work from 1.7 to 11 pH. So again, that's not gonna interact.
Good clarity.
Yes, thank you. All right. DAO. So HistoHarmony is currently the DAO product that we recommend in the clinic. But it's a newer product. So would you like to talk about it a little bit? And then Kimberly, I don't know if you have any questions on using like max doses versus like how people who are maybe in that sensitive teetering, how they can maybe onboard it in a slower way for that really sensitive population that,
yeah. So like you said, this HistoHarmony right now is an extract. So so if you have alpha gal, which is a very, very small portion of the population, but it's growing, this would be a no-go for you. So you either get it from pea sprouts, basically, or some sort of legume sprouts you get DAO from, or you usually get it from beef kidney. And the pea sprout thing, there are some brands out there that are saying that they have viable DAO. The extraction of DAO is not easy. It's extraordinarily complex. And the molecule itself, when you're done, is fragile. It's very fragile. It hates oxygen. and it does not like stomach acid. And so if you manage to extract it, which I know companies are working their best. I'm not saying that companies are out there falsifying their extraction processes. There's just a lot of things that could go wrong that would diminish the amount of DAO active you'd have at the end of it. And that's why I've never recommended publicly taking beef kidney, because I've not seen these kidney extracts do anything for people with DAO except for the placebo effect. Nothing wrong with the placebo effect. It's 30% effective, but that's not 30%. It's not good enough for healthy gut. I don't think it's good enough for MC 360. So we're trying to find something more. The pea sprout option, there are companies working on that. We're working on that. I just think that they're not taking care of the enteric coating. So I think the stomach acid is really crushing their products. And then the oxygen is a real risk there as well. And so what makes HistoHarmony different than the other DAOs out there is that process. They come in little blister packs. They're nitrogen packed, so there's no oxygen in there. They're not losing that issue. And then they're encased in enteric coating. And enteric coating, people hear that word and they're like, I don't even have a reference for what that means. All it is like stomach safe, basically. It's going to go through your stomach and it's going to open at a certain pH that's not going to exist inside your stomach. Now there's different technologies out there that are like delayed release or stomach resistant. How we time these things is literally a test after production. You take the pills, whether it's delayed release capsules or enteric capsules, and you put them in a bath of acid that's around 2, and you heat that acid up to the body's temperature, and then sometimes you vibrate it, right? Just like your stomach. So you're like simulating the stomach conditions, and then you watch for how long it takes until the capsules break apart. And in delayed release stuff, you cannot find a capsule that lasts longer than 45 minutes. They will not. All the brands out there that are using delayed release capsules, does it do something? Yeah, sure. It gave you 45 minutes, but your stomach process, the whole process down there is definitely longer than 45 minutes. It's usually like 2 hours or more. And so the delayed release technologies are kind of a false prophet in that regard. They don't really do what enteric coating does. Enteric coating minimum, I think, is 2 hours you have to last. Most of our stuff goes beyond 2 hours, 2:15, 2:30, and then they just kind of stop running the test. Maybe someday we'll have to try to figure out how long it can go. But that being said, that's why we're finally offering a DAO on the market. That's why I'm publicly speaking for not because I just learned about DAO. I've known about DAO for like 10 years, but just because there was nothing out there that I would ever put my name and brand on the line for. And so that's where we are with HistoHarmony. There are studies on this extract in humans for pain associated with fibromyalgia, for headaches associated with histamine, and for focus related to ADHD. And the human studies use 2 to 4 of the tablets per day. So it's just important for you to know, I think, where the research is at. Not that this actually prevents any of that stuff. It's just supportive. Obviously, histamine is part of all these things, but not the whole story. But I'd love to hear, Kimberly, how you guys are actually executing.
Yeah. So we have certainly found in clinic that it's a stronger product than most DAO out there, probably because of the coating, right, and the nitrogen storage, right? So people who are able to onboard a full capsule, not a problem, right? A robust group. When we get into the sensitive groups, there is like a nervous system component, perhaps, and it is trying to slice off a piece of the product. So I know it's not always being taken as intended, but it's almost like we're trying to get under the radar of the immune system a little bit, and trying to, they feel like their body feels more comfortable going super slow with it, with the intention of getting to a full dose, right? So maybe taking a slice of it or making it into more of a powder, more from the sense that if they do react, it's a smaller reaction. They can kind of back off out of it. It's kind of like, I call it Trojan horsing the immune system a little bit, like trying to take it with what you're already eating and used to and going in calm with it. But yeah, trying to, that's how we sort of onboard it with more sensitive people.
Yeah, I go ahead. I was just going to ask real quick, Stephen, because we get this question a lot. It's like, how many is too many? So you mentioned your studies being for like 2 to 4 a day. So that would maybe be like 2 with breakfast or 2 with dinner, or maybe it's like one before every meal. So like, what's kind of like that upper limit that you've seen?
I'm not sure that there is an upper limit, although we should, be adults and don't take the whole box in one day and then make me the wrong guy here, or SL360 the wrong person. So be an adult, but I would say that I've pushed it to 12 to 16 a day just to see what happens. Notice nothing more than when I was doing 2 to 4. So I would say on average, I do 2 to 4 on a regular day. If I'm very stressed, I'm in the 6 to 8 a day range. If I'm very stressed, but those are short periods of time, or when I know I'm cheating. So when I know I'm going out to a restaurant and I'm going to have a glass of wine or some alcohol and some cheese, like I know I'm pushing the histamine pathways, I'm going to take it, more of it. And I personally don't take it in the morning, but I don't associate with having active MCAS or active histamine issues. Mine are under stress. And what I would say is I actually have more ADHD focus issues. And so I dose mine in the afternoons so that I take less caffeine. And I don't necessarily take them with food. I do believe that you'll need to experiment. Some people seem to produce more histamine in response to their food, and they should take them 15 to 20 minutes before every meal for the best effect. Other folks seem to be just harboring too much histamine. Maybe it's due to their microbiome. Maybe it's due to the pollen levels at that time or the environmental exposure of their house. And they feel better taking it in between meals, like away from food. And so you'll need to experiment with that. My wife, Shay, who's in the company, always had headaches during her cycle, like the few days leading up to her cycle and then her cycle. I got her to take 2. She takes 2 whenever. Like her pill taking is extraordinarily erratic, just whenever she remembers. And those 2 per day have really basically, I would say, taken away 99% of her cycle associated headaches that I believe are histamine derived. And so again, that's some days I'm sure they're with food and some days I'm sure they're not with food. So I think you have to really, someone, Olga is asking if you could take it for a bed. You can take it whenever you want to take it. Try it, track your sleep, do it for a week and see what happens.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We have people take it right before bed, just because if there's somebody who reacts to histamine overnight, where they're waking up at like that 3 a.m. time, or they just a little bit of insomnia or trouble falling asleep, or anxiety at night overnight for not a reason that they know about. So that can often be histamine derived. So that's why people will sometimes take it on an empty stomach right before bed.
Yeah. All right. Holozyme. I think we might need to pick up our pace a little bit if we can get some questions answered for everyone today.
I mean, I think I said a little bit about, what makes Holozyme different than everybody else on the market is our combination of minerals and enzymes. So minerals make the enzymes work harder and better under all conditions. And so we have a patent around that. There's a lot of other very good sort of enzymes on the market. The problem most people have is they don't choose a good enough version, or they don't take enough of it to really see the effects. And so the less optimized your stomach acid, the slow, like if you eat super fast, you don't chew your food, you need more enzymes. The more stressed you are, the faster you eat, the more stressed you are, the more sympathetic your nervous system. All these things reduce your enzymes, as well as your age. If you're over, if you're 50, 60, 70, for sure, your gut organs are aging just like your eyes, just like your ovaries and your testes. So all these things degrade your enzyme production. And so just know that and play with that. But I think for most people in the MC360 world, they probably need to start with sprinkles, right, Kimberly?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Most people start with sprinkles, open a capsule, do a few sprinkles on things that they're used to eating, and kind of go that way.
Yeah. I always say, like, if you're having a bad day or like stressed at work, or like if you have one extra stressor, like that's not the day to introduce a new supplement. But also I feel like people like, you have the combo of the 4 here today that we're talking about. And I think it's Janie is asking, like, if you have a choice between the 4, like which would you try to choose for MCAS first? I think this will vary individual to individual. But Kimberly, if you want to address that real quick.
So yeah, really depends on what's going on with you. But if you had to start somewhere and just take one, oh, I have a hard time picking, but I guess I would say either Holozyme or Tributerin is my take, but it just depends on what's going on with the gut. Stephen, what do you answer to that?
Yeah. I mean, I could argue you could start with any one of the four first. Like I could argue, I mean, it would be another 40 minutes of me arguing pros and cons of which one to start. I would say just what one do you feel most interested and excited about testing? Because like part of this game of getting well is reframing it around, wow, what an interesting opportunity. I get to play with my body and play with these products and see what happens. And if you can stay in a higher elevated mindset around even like you have to cut out all these foods, cool. How are you going to make something delicious with only 3 spices and 5 foods? I'm not saying we should stay there very long, but if you're in that place, any way that you can just notice where your excitement is. Number one, you're increasing the likelihood of a placebo effect. And number 2, you're just naturally going to be more interested in the outcomes and dealing with, if you do have an upset reaction, you're just more likely to deal with it better. Be like, dang, Tributerin X, man, it constipated me. What that weird guy is talking too fast say on that podcast? Let me go listen again and see what he said. Oh yeah, that means I might be really low and do this and do that. So I would just say pick the one you're most excited about, the one that has your interest the most, and then really be open to what your body's going to tell you. And it might be no to that product. It might be go slow. It might be go slow and then take way more than you thought it would. Like, but listen.
Yeah, curiosity is huge. Being more curious than afraid.
I also think people are like looking for the one magic pill, and often it's like the layering effect. So like even if you can onboard small amounts of like a couple of these to support all of the systems, like we were talking about last week on like the whole digestive system and how each of these products actually targets different ones. So when you combine them, there's more of that accumulative effect too.
Yeah, remember what I said, going too blazing fast that you don't even know why you're doing what you're doing is an extraordinarily common mistake, but also going too slow is an extraordinarily common mistake that you never quite test a full protocol together and you overanalyze the shit out of it and then you don't even really make progress. So somewhere in the middle of too fast and too slow is really helpful because the products do stack, and it's not like when you start to figure out your body, you start to stack the products, at least our healthy gut sort of like protocol, it really does become exponential. And our brains don't understand that. If you don't have a math background, it doesn't even make sense to you. But just think about kind of like what happened with inflation over the pandemic. It was like nothing, and then it was like everywhere, and like everything went through the roof. Well, you can go from like everything hurts and I'm not feeling well to like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I could feel this good in faster than you think, if you get the right combo of products on board.
Yeah. Or I've also seen like someone try something for 2 weeks and haven't seen the effect and then just stop. But it's like, not giving the body that full potential to really have something successfully onboarded.
Yeah, your body changes. It takes a while to there's so many different things that are working, like systems of systems, I think was mentioned a few times in the beginning of this talk. You have to think about your body in systems and seasons. The world, the planet has seasons, and each season has its own unique pros and cons, literally, to growing, to how we could die as a human, to like whatever we want to do as humans. The body goes through seasons along with the seasons of the planet, and you're going through seasons of your life emotionally. And then of course you have the systems of systems. And so to just take something for 2 weeks to be like, I knew it, another DAO that doesn't work. I knew it, another enzyme product that doesn't work. Cool if you get to do it however you want to do it, but also that's a very common mistake and a great way to stay stuck.
Yeah. Okay. HCL guard.
I mean, if I could get everybody to test their stomach acid and try HCL guard in 2025, that would be like one of the first things that I would force. Like if I had a magic wand and I could force supplements on people to test, because the amount of people who I've heard over the last 15 years who are like, I avoided betaine HCl. I avoided stomach acid stuff for years. And then when I tried it, it was like this immense breakthrough. And then everything takes off. Healing just takes off from there. And so to me, stomach acid is not needed for everybody. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably like the immune system numbers, 70 to 80% of folks probably do need HCl guard, but there's a solid 20 to 30% either due to gastritis, due to ulcers, due to other things they can't tolerate it. And then some people just don't have stomach acid related issues. And so, but the people who do, oh my gosh, talk about a breakthrough for them. So I would definitely do that. If you have a reflux reaction to taking our HCl or anybody's HCl, just take some baking soda. Again, if you have active ulcers, it's a no-go for you. And if you don't tolerate it right now, and you have a symptom list, like you meet the criteria for having MCAS, histamine, immune-related issues, gut-related issues, I would say 80, 90, 95% chance you don't have good stomach acid. That's not what it's saying, the burning feeling. It's saying your mucosal membranes are shot. You can't tolerate more acid. And so work on mucosal membranes. This is where I would go right to Tributyrin X. I would go right to working on your hormones. There's other supplements out there that can help rebuild the mucosal membrane pathways. But Tributyrin X is great for increasing mucus production and helping to boost those pathways. And so is, bioidentical hormone replacement. Like, getting on the right amount of estrogen and progesterone will do wonders for your mucosal membranes. So Tributyrin X it's butyrate. If you don't know what butyrate is, you will know. It'll be like what probiotics are now in 10 years. It is the compound that basically we want our probiotics to be making from our prebiotics. There's a lot of compounds they make for us, but like the main one is butyrate. As far as this one's found, low butyrate in the brain is found with neurodegeneration. Low butyrate in the lungs is asthma. It's not the only source of these conditions, but it's found in association with all these conditions: osteoporosis, muscle loss. Like there's even this cool new butyrate muscle axis I was deep into like a month ago, where if people take more Tributyrin X, they might be able to build more muscle. It's kind of this crazy thing where butyrate travels from the gut to the muscle cells and helps them out. So more butyrate, more better. A lot of what we want from our vegetables, when people say, hey, eat a lot of healthy vegetables. A lot of people, when they say have a healthy microbiome, a lot of what they actually want from that, they're actually saying have more butyrate. And if you have more butyrate, almost every disease we know of that's part of the equation. It's not solving for that disease. It's not fixing that disease. It's just part of the equation of that issue. And so, especially in MCAS and histamine issues, getting anything into the gut that can protect the mast cells more so they're less reactive to strawberries, less reactive to whatever, is extraordinarily helpful. And in this case, rebuilding the leaky gut junctions, rebuilding the mucosal membranes is extraordinarily helpful.
Yeah. All right. We're going to skip over that because you did such a great overview. Let's answer our last community question, then maybe we can get a few more live Q&As if you're able to stay on a little bit past 2, since we're at time. All right. If mycotoxins are being addressed, but there's also Candida and SIBO, what are things that should be considered in deciding whether or not to address SIBO or Candida first?
That's getting into what he was talking about, binary, right? Like you don't have to know the exact microbe usually. You're going with a protocol that's antimicrobial. So you're not like, I'm going to just target SIBO or I'm just going to target Candida. You want to change over the terrain, and you want to start, but also we want to, deal with the mold piece first, because if you're not, that keeps coming through the gut and causing the dysbiosis as you're detoxing that as well.
Yeah, it's never there's never one causal thing in the body, and there's never one root cause. In a way, this obsession with root causes might have gone too far. We might need to pull back from that line of thinking. Instead, think of what are the conditions necessary for you to have these coexisting problems? Like, what would need to be true if you had candida, SIBO, and mold issues? And what could be true so that those conditions are less able to occur or less harmful in their presence? And some of those things are like better stomach acid. Better stomach acid makes it way harder for SIBO and candida to even occur in the first place. And also, it's going to be reducing your LPS load, which is going to help with any mycotoxin detoxification because it's so hard to get rid of both. So start to ask the questions, not like there's been this very linear thing, like first I detox, then I kill, then I repopulate, then I repair. That's not, where is linear in nature? There's no linear in nature. There's no linear in the body. That's a human construct that's outdated at this point. These things are happening all the time. So I'm not saying take 900 pills and layer all these protocols together because it's overwhelming, number one. And number two, it's just not easy for behavioral change. But I am trying to Venn diagram where can you get more benefit from certain products. Dealing with these co-conditions can really speed the healing process and do less damage. Because if you get like warped into this thinking like, I'm detoxing and therefore I have to cut out all these foods. And then you go into a killing phase and you're like, well, but I got to cut out all these other foods. Well, probably all those foods you just cut out just killed your butyrate production. And so you're going to wake up in 6 months and be in a really poor position microbially, and you're going to need to rebuild out of that hole. Versus you could have gone through that phase of detox and killing using different products like Tributyrin X, using even maybe some prebiotics in this case, or something like that to prop up the systems that might be damaged accidentally due to the other things you need to do to help yourself.
Yeah, I want to go back real quick because someone is asking about some discounts. And so we actually have in our store right now, masscell360.com/store. Oops, sorry. We have, if you use the code healthy10, it's 10% off on our store, but you can also get these products directly from Healthy Gut at healthygut.com and using the code masscell360 or masscell15 if Cam can drop those in for you guys. So you guys have two options to order these products from at a discounted rate through MassCell360 because we're huge believers in Steven's products. So, okay. Here is one. Can gluten intolerance be a mast cell histamine issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you're reacting to gluten, you're firing up your immune systems, giving you more histamine. It's keeping you stuck, and yeah, that can be going on. So that's why the importance of taking that away for a period of time, getting curious about that, and seeing how you're doing. Say 6-8 weeks with no gluten.
Thanks. All right. Here's one. What test would you recommend for SIBO? Also, if you suspect SIBO, would HCl guard be contraindicated?
So in clinic, we don't start there in terms of going after SIBO. I know I came in like with a positive SIBO test, right? And Beth wisely told me, stop testing for SIBO. We know you have SIBO. Kind of back up what we're doing and order of operations for what we normally do, because you'll keep disrupting when you're detoxing. You keep disrupting that gut, right? So yeah, we do need to support the gut, but we keep imbalancing things. So your gut's not going to be perfect, right? And not that it'll ever be perfect, but you know what I mean? Like just putting the cart before the horse in terms of you're gonna almost everybody who comes through here has some degree of SIBO.
Yeah, and I would say there's no contraindication with. In fact, I think doing a SIBO protocol without stomach acid support, if you need it, is almost malpractice. People don't love this analogy, but I struggle to find a better one. Things did not go well when the United States just decided to pull out of Afghanistan and just left everything. They just haphazardly pulled out. Everything went nuts over there. If you're just doing a killing program, I don't care if it's prescription drugs or if it's herbal or if it's blessed holy water, whatever you choose for a killing program, there's collateral damage, and you still have to ask the question, how did this happen in the first place? And if you don't correct the conditions and how did this happen in the first place, after the killing program, the same thing will occur. And I've seen it literally thousands of times. People are coming back like which tests would you do? I would do a trio breath test, but I'd also be doing some microbiome tests at the same time. I'd probably be doing like a stool test as well, because SIBO can co-occur with parasites. And if you eliminate the parasites and you correct the stomach acid enzyme issue, the SIBO will kind of correct itself long-term, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes. And so I think there's this over-indexing on any one condition that can be super detrimental to long-term optimization of your body. Because again, if you just go in and you bomb and you destroy with anything, and I'm not even saying, like, rifaximin's a great product. It really works well with some people. But if you don't correct what was happening to get the SIBO in the first place, it's likely to reoccur at some point.
Yeah, we do. We don't typically test people for SIBO. Like Kimberly said, it's like, we know you have some level of gut dysbiosis going on. Like if you've gotten to MCAS level, there's something happening. All right. Could you comment on GERD or acid reflux? Having severe bout of it and Pepcid's not helping. It's getting worse. Could this be from low stomach acid?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, number one, if you're on and you've been on PPIs or some sort of stomach acid blocking medications for years, decades, like just know that this is going to be kind of a path for you to figuring this out. And remember I said there's no black and white. There's no SIBO, not SIBO. Just because the test will give you a black and white result doesn't mean the body occurs in black and white. Again, it's not linear, it's gray. So acid reflux, GERD, these conditions are also very gray and changing. And so in general, most people are struggling with low stomach acid, not high acid, even though that's what the marketing has been told to us. The University of Duke has done a number of really high quality studies on low carbohydrate diets, reducing acid reflux symptoms. So if you're not currently on a low histamine, low carbohydrate diet with things like holozymes and other support, that will be the first place to start. And then after you get there, you should be under control a lot more than you are now. Then try some HCl guard and see if you can bridge off of the PPI and see if that makes it even better. If you flare due to the holozyme or something like that, go get an upper endoscopy. Like, you might have a full-on ulcer here and you might need some real medical support. For people who are struggling for years and years and they don't go to the Western medical system to get imaging, to get testing, you are missing out because you're causing yourself extra pain. If you have some of these conditions, if you have an actual physical issue, nothing in my lineup, nothing in the MC360 lineup is going to help that other than actually getting that helped. And so I'm a big believer in, if you have a reoccurring issue, you've tried multiple attempts at different things, go get it, go pay the $500, whatever it costs you to get that image. And also, if you're some of these people who you've done all the functional medicine tests, but you haven't run an iron panel, you haven't run like conventional medical stuff, like you could be anemic and nothing we do is going to fix that. And so again, if you're battling the same condition over and over from different points of view, get different result or get different test results to see if you can rule in or rule out certain things.
We actually have a client who was anemic, and using HCl guard really helped. Like eating red meat like more consistently, but having the HCl guard to break it down was a crucial part of her addressing that. Okay. I think we have time for one more. Do you have any advice? Maybe two. There's two questions. All right. Any advice on exercise, body aches, and stomach pain after physical stress?
I mean, listen to your body, right? Maybe you're not at the point. There's something else going on, and it's kind of figuring out what is that piece that's going on that your body's letting you know that normal movement isn't okay for you. Yeah. Looking at your nervous system, looking at your environment, looking at all those things.
Yeah, and if stay below the pain threshold. So if you want to lift weights and you can't because you get all these issues, then walk 4 miles. If you can walk 4 miles, but you can't lift weights, then ruck 4 miles, meaning put on 20 pounds of body weight stuff and walk the same amount. Like exercise in it is hormesis, basically. It's a stressor that causes an adaptation that is very healthy for us and absolutely critical for gut health, nervous system health, sleeping, longevity, bones, muscles, everything. So my only point there is know what you're playing with. You're playing with a game where you're trying to build a capacity. And so stay below the point where it causes issues and just try to find different ways to make it slightly harder, but they don't trigger you. And hopefully over the next couple of months, you'll get past where you're even working out now and having that reaction. Oh, Jamie, I think you're on mute.
Muted.
Put the question up anyway. Wondering your thoughts on sulforaphane supplement to help liver detox and inflammation.
It's a great supplement. I mean, can be helpful for detox. Depends on who you are, right? And what's going on with you.
Fun, really cool. Yeah, fun, really cool product. In the grand scheme of mast cell activation and histamine issues, not anything I'd have close to the top of my list.
Right.
Okay. All right, guys. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to dump Kimberly and Alex there. I just wanted to let you guys know that I alluded to it earlier. We announced it last week. We are now offering 2 tiers of support, both foundational and advanced, which is our longer term traditional comprehensive option where you're working with health coach and lead practitioner versus the foundational, which is more so the kind of working with a health coach, kind of getting you unstuck, getting you some real actionable item steps, figuring out where you are in the mast cell 360 method. And this can be like an on needed or an as needed basis for the foundational. So when you go to the application page, you'll go through the pre-screening questions. You'll find that at mastcell360.com /application. It's right here for you guys. Cam will drop it into the chat as well. So we're really looking forward to, serving more people in the clinic with our new addition, also looking at international clients as well, but obviously with some limitations there for supplement labs and things. But we are giving that a try again. So I know that's really exciting for some people. All right. I just want to say thank you. Sorry, there we go. Navigating everything here. I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here today. And Kimberly and Stephen, if there's anything left that you want to leave our audience with, please go ahead.
I guess what I would say is one thing that I see, and Steve was talking about going too fast or too slow, listening to your body and getting back in touch and reattaching. We can get up in our head, our mind to our body, and letting our body lead. A lot of mast cell people are people who have pushed past what the body's trying to tell you. So getting back in touch with letting the body lead the speed at which you can move forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I would just say, especially for this audience, for the super sensitive folks, for the mast cell folks who've been either struggling for a long time and now you're just getting a diagnosis, a label, please remember that it is a spectrum. And please remember, if you've been on this downward slide for a long time, please be open to the fact that you might need to go in directions that you hold sacred beliefs, such as Western medicine harm me. I can no longer see a Western medical doctor. Well, guess what? They got the best MRIs, the best CT scans, some of the best blood work out there. And I've seen people in this community avoid those areas because there has been trauma. Not just because they made it up, but because there was real trauma, because people were mean to them or not helpful. And oftentimes the answers we seek are in the darkest places we don't want to go. And so just be open and aware that I welcome you. If this is the first time you ever heard about mast cells and histamine issues, hopefully this gave you whole kinds of crazy stuff to start with. And if you've been on the journey for a long time, hopefully I can be a challenger to you to go look in other directions.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for being here today. We'll see you guys next week.